Well, hi there. I'm sitting here together with my client, Michael, from my Mastermind program. And very happy to have you here with me today, Michael. How are you?
Great, Dan. As usual, it's awesome to be with you. Got these
Likewise.
headphones on. Because I forgot we scheduled our interview during my gardener day, so I'm drowning out the leaf blower in the background. But happy as always to talk with you about what we do.
Me too. And I can hear you loud and clear. Very crisp sound coming through and no lawnmower in the background.
Excellent.
So, no surprise, obviously, we're talking business development, you and I, as usual. We've been working together for a long time. I think you were one of the first joiners, if not the first joiner in the Mastermind program in the early days. I'm very happy that we're continuing to work together, you and I. So I'm keen on getting your input on everything, really, business development. I think before we get into all of that, let's start with who you are.
Sure, you bet. So I hope you got all day, because I'll launch into
yeah, I'm gonna time us a little bit here.
I'll launch. I'm never shy about talking about myself, but pretty much all the important stuff you need to know, you can see in the background of this video. Dog person, Steeler fan, admirer of Abe Lincoln. The only thing that's not in the background is a picture of my wife. Other than that, you see my whole life story. I think you've met Otis before, but I'm trying to get out of the way so you can see that's the Beagle poem about Otis.
Shame we don't have him on the call today, but we have limited time.
Yes, as it relates to what we do, I've actually been a neutral full-time since about 2008, although I did take a hiatus as an entrepreneur. That's a discussion for another time. But I've held positions in a large law firm, a sole practitioner, and then a couple corporate executive positions in human resources and labor relations. And I'm in the Los Angeles area, which is among, I believe, the most competitive neutral markets in the U.S. If not the most competitive. It seems like everybody who gets to sort of my age, middle-aged litigator, decides that they want to ease back and they'll just hang out a shingle and tell people that they're neutral. It seems that's kind of the career path of choice for many litigators and former judges these days. So I'm among them, but working with you has, I think, helped me define my niche and my brand a little better, so as to stand out from among this extraordinarily huge competitive ocean of neutrals that we swim in Southern California.
Yeah, maybe we'll get time to go into that a little bit, because it's an interesting topic. The differences between building a successful law practice and becoming a successful mediator or arbitrator. It's there's a difference there.
Definitely a difference. As you know from working with people who are entering the neutral practice from different angles. Some of whom have built successful law practices, either in firms or as solos, and think that they're going to come out and essentially do the same thing, or not even have to do the same thing, or start all over almost as a neutral because they have been so successful. Mm-hmm. They sort of think that they can rely on the same network, perhaps, that they built in developing their legal business, and I think quickly disabused of that notion.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, I think that's a clear and concise background, Michael. And I think natural next step is how you and I got in touch. I mean, what made us start working together from your perspective? What was it that you were looking for?
So there is a timing is everything element to life, but I've been trying to develop a mediation, a neutral practice for as long as I've been doing it, which, as I said, dates back to 2008, off and on. And there was mostly because of I was at a different point in my career, and continued to be really not solely focused on building a neutral practice until 2017. I had done some of the things that we've done together, but inconsistently. So what I was looking for was ideas on how to increase my business from sort of an okay level to a level that I consider to be satisfactory. And so I got a LinkedIn message from you, and it happened that yours was not the only LinkedIn message, similar, promising increased business. And most of the ones I just deleted, but I didn't delete yours in part because of the message, and in part because of the timing. And then we had a call, and you and I hit it off. I think immediately, and continue to develop our relationship, which is more than half the battle. Is when you get someone who is an advisor, you have to have a rapport, and not every advisor is right for every person, and not every person is going to work well with every advisor. So, but you and I, at least from my perspective, I got pretty lucky. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. Yeah, I think it was just you're practicing what you preach in terms of targeting messages to the audience, and as we've gone along here for the past however long it's been, a couple of years, refining that outreach message, continuously. You do it, and you advise your clients like me to do it, and it needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think during the course of our work, obviously there's been, to say the least, some interesting time periods. We started off at a really good time, I think, but then we've had 18 months of pandemic, with courts operating at reduced or no capacity at all, which essentially means that most of your clients and referral parties, the attorneys, haven't been busy, which kind of makes it hard for a mediator, an arbitrator, to be busy. And I guess we'll get into that later on. But I think we've navigated that landscape really well during the course of throughout the pandemic, essentially.
I think that a couple things about the pandemic that were unique to my particular situation. Number one, a lot of the work that I like to do in terms of business development is hands-on, touchy-feely, if you will, in person, and that completely went away for the most part. Whether or not I was willing to do it, others might not have been, and there were sort of no places to go, or very few places to go. So that affected sort of the way I typically have done this. And second of all, and so that was not great. The other point, though, is this the lemons out of lemonade sort of cliche, is that it did give us time to sort of refine the outreach through social media and email, get a customer relationship management database populated, and start to use that, which is, as I think we may get into, sort of a key element to a successful business development program, is knowing who your potential clients are and keeping track of the outreach. And so, given the pandemic, the expectations, at least mine, were reduced. in terms of how much business I thought I should be doing during the pandemic. And then, of course, with the transition that pretty much all neutrals made to Zoom, then we were able to, like I said, refine our approach.
Yeah. And continuing on that, then what would you see, now looking back on this period, what would you see being the biggest benefits of us working together?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure we have that much time left, but
thank you. We do.
I'll see if I can get the top several. I mean, the first one is a system. You provide a structure and a system that has milestones, benchmarks. It's a roadmap essentially, and you can't get from A to B without knowing, having a plan on how to get there. So you provide that. Number two is just accountability. We do these calls regularly. And so, like I told you from the beginning, it's like my piano teacher. I need to make sure I'm doing the work. So, because every 2 weeks, we're going to talk about what we did and, what we need to do. So, so that's accountability. And then consistency sort of goes hand in hand with that. We're talking regularly, and then I guess last, just for purposes of keeping this fairly brief, is just the nuts and bolts knowledge about social media, LinkedIn, different platforms that we can use to to assist with the business development efforts, bring some efficiencies, some economies, some targeting. You have the suite, and are continuing to test, try, and then talk to your clients about products that can help in the process. So that's my quick summary anyway.
That's great. I think very comprehensive. And what would you say about the group? Because obviously you're part of the Mastermind Group, but in all of my programs there is a private community. There's regular group calls. But how you found interacting with the Mastermind members on our workshops and regular group calls?
Yeah, well, so I think that's one of the primary benefits is the group calls. We do them monthly now, and I actually had an opportunity to meet in person with one of the group members on a trip to Washington. Yeah, well, I made a trip to Washington, D.C. recently, and we hooked up and had a nice brunch. And anyway, the thing about doing neutral work, at least in most contexts, is it can be isolating, especially during the pandemic. Maybe in a sense, maybe the advent of Zoom and the popularity of Zoom, in a sense, made it less isolating. But I've been doing this for a while, and I do it in my office without people to bounce ideas off of necessarily. And so the monthly calls in the Mastermind Group allow us to compare notes essentially, and it also has introduced us to each other, so that even outside the context of those calls, we can and do interact about different things. Many business related things, but not just business related things. I know that when next I go to Denver, I plan to look up Jim from Denver or if he happens to be in his, second home in North Carolina, I'll look him up there too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And who knows? We're at some point, maybe we're all going to meet up once travel works a little bit better than it does at present. I think that'll be nice to get some kind of event in place.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah. So what else? Well, the obvious question, I guess, looking at the outcome then, and you and I, we've had plenty of discussions around this, but that's a question that I always get. Does this work? Will I get more cases, and so on? So for someone who would ask you that question, will I get more cases? Did you get more cases? What will you tell them?
Well, I've gotten more cases, so if that's the only thing you care about, and it's certainly a priority for all of us. I mean, that's pretty much why we sign up. But yeah, the short answer is yes, and it definitely works. And the obvious answer is it works better than the alternative.
That's a good
right?
point.
It does. And so, what you're looking for is a value proposition, right? And it's, it definitely, if you just think about it from the investment and the return on investment, it's a very high ROI. As the corporate, I spent some time in the corporate world, so any project had to be justified, with an ROI or IRR or whatever the accountant types, the CFO types like to talk about. And so, sure, getting more business is one way of measuring success, and maybe for some people it's the only way to measure success. The thing about this is, in a sense, it's depending on where people start in the process. This is a long lead time endeavor. It's the rare person who's going to, call you up, work the program for a few months, and then all of a sudden be as busy as they want to be. If that happens, it's probably happened, but it's not the rule. And so the way I measure success is certainly, am I making more money than I did before I met and started working with Dan? Yeah, of course. But some order of magnitude greater, I'm increasing my network, and then what I call my substantive connections, which are people that I think have a realistic probability of providing me business within the next year. That's kind of how I look at it. It's not because this is a high touch business. People are not going to just pick your name out of a list or a phone book or something like that. And so you have to have made yourself known, if not personally, certainly I would say, no more than a 1 degree of separation from the potential client, because a lot of the way the mediators and arbitrators are selected is somebody will say, hey, the other side proposed Michael as a mediator, and they'll send an email around, does anybody know this guy, or does anybody work with this person? And so then if you get positive referrals from someone that potential client knows, that's good, but you have to have laid the groundwork for that, and it just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think just maybe to reiterate, because I completely agree, the easiest way to quit business is to already have business. For those cases, we've seen like almost immediate results. For someone who has no cases, then obviously that's because they have very little or no relationships with their target audience, and then that needs to be cultivated. And And creating those relationships is just like you say, like that doesn't happen overnight. We can just look to ourselves, how easy it is for us or how difficult it is for us to to select someone to work with for something as serious as dispute resolution or providing expert witness services and so on. That would take some getting to know the individual in question.
Yeah, and to your point, this is not just true of neutrals, but businesses sometimes tend to undervalue their loyal customers. And in fact, as you just said, the best source of business for us is someone who's already giving us business. But you can't take that for granted. And so people who are, already established a bit of a practice, one of the things that, you talk about early on is cultivating those people, reaching out to them. Don't wait for the next case from people who've already given you business. So I think that's something that should be common sense. I mean, a lot of times people say, "Oh, this is just common sense." Well, no, it isn't. It's not just common sense. It's it may be fundamental marketing principles, but it's a lot more than employing common sense. It makes sense when you say, "Oh yeah, well, if you have 10 people that have given you cases over the last year, then maybe those 10 are the first people you should talk to about the next case." And so, I think those are the easy connections to start with, and then the whole process that we've been working on together is to sort of decrease the degrees of separation from those people to the brand new connection.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good segue into the question of networking. I realize that for some maybe that may have some connotations that isn't always like positive, but just expanding the individuals that you're connected with. What would you tell someone that says that I'm already a great networker, but clearly they're not getting enough cases, but I will have those conversations occasionally. So what would you comment on when someone says something like that?
Well, if you think you're a great networker, but you're not getting the level of business that you want to get, then something needs to be rethought. You and I are always exchanging ideas on books. And I'm going to recommend my latest one to you, which is just apropos of this question. It's right on point. If you think you're a great networker, but you're not getting that business, perhaps you need to rethink your opinion of your networking abilities. And the book that I just read is called Think Again. It's by a guy named Adam Grant. So you and I can talk about that, on our one-on-one call. But that's what I would say. If you think you're a great networker, but the results you're getting are not satisfactory to you, then think again.
Yeah, I'll add that to my shopping cart. Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, we can talk about it. You'll like it, but I'm not going to give away all the secrets from that book or any other thing during this call, right?
Yeah, not too much. Let me throw another one at you, Michael. I think this one is interesting too. So what would your thoughts be on someone telling you that, before they start doing, more comprehensive and systematic business development, they just want to do A, B, C, or D first? And that will usually be build a website, get my LinkedIn profile in order, maybe get this additional certification. And once I've taken care of those few things, then I'm going to start.
Well, okay, but I would say that you know you don't have the capacity to sort of do all these things simultaneously, then you know I don't know how you've been successful being a lawyer, or think you're going to be successful being a neutral. I mean, the point is it's especially if you're just starting out, or even if you're not, if you're just starting out with a business development effort, you have to run along parallel tracks and do a bunch of things simultaneously, because certainly you have to start someplace, but sort of just getting one thing done is, without knowing how that thing, let's say it's a website, fits into the whole process, is I mean, it might work, but it's less likely to work than if you sort of have an idea of why you're doing what you're doing, and how the website, the LinkedIn profile, anything else that you might be looking at to get done, quote unquote, first, fits into the business development effort. That's kind of the way I'd approach that.
Yeah, great point.
I would say, look, you know, when you and I met, I had a LinkedIn profile, I had a website, I had been doing some of the things, but it wasn't until, you know, we sort of had a few discussions, and I'd looked at your milestones, your program, so to speak, from a 10,000 foot level, that I saw, okay, well, here's how all of these parts are going to interact.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like and often that's what I see. Like, there are professionals that may be, you know, they may be doing a lot of really good things, but at least I find if you don't have all the time in the world to wait, then doing things as a system, coherently, that's really what moves the dial. If you're doing it in isolation, it's not going to be as effective. And I guess that's precisely what you're saying. And I guess I would also add that, going back to your comment about there not being any quick fixes, since we're talking about cultivating relationships and so on, obviously the sooner you start doing that, the sooner you're going to be able to benefit from those relationships and add value to them. So if you wait for all the stars to be aligned, then maybe, you know, you're just going to delay that date.
Yeah, well, I would certainly say, for example, that people who've been flopping around, kind of like I was when I met you, doing certain things in an unsystematic way. Just to hark back to the one point you already made, is the people that are already giving you business you don't really need to get your website in order to pick up the phone or send them an email saying, hey, you know, it's been 3 months since we successfully worked together on case Doe versus Roe, and I just thought I'd drop you a line and see how things are going. You don't need a website for that. So that's the point. I mean, there are, once you see how things fit in, you need to work on parallel tracks, because you can do some outreach with people who are already giving you business, while simultaneously sprucing up your website and your LinkedIn profile in preparation for doing outreach to people who are at one or two or three or 5 levels removed from that.
Yeah, excellent. I have one final question, and you've already said it. You're a mediator and arbitrator, but we've had other professionals in our groups, and as you know, performance laws works with anybody, individuals and companies who derive business from attorneys and law firms. So, in your mind, is this suitable for other professions as well, expert witnesses, legal service providers, et cetera, et cetera?
So, performance laws focus as you just said, is people who get business from attorneys. But the roadmap and the process, while within that niche, is certainly not just for neutrals. It is adaptable, and you are adaptable to anyone who is, like you just said, seeking to get business from attorneys. And in fact, I would say, of course, since I'm not, I'm a neutral, the tough part for neutrals is you have to get two sides, if not more, to agree on you. Whereas if you're an expert or a consultant, jury consultant, other consultants to lawyers, you typically only need to get one. And so in a sense, I would say that you might see some quicker results because I've had this happen is I have people who propose me through the work that you and I have done together as either a mediator or an arbitrator, but the other side doesn't agree for some silly reason. It's hard for me to understand how.
Hey, me too, Michael.
But so I think that coming back to the point that the process works, the accountability works, and the consistency works, and the other thing that we haven't really talked about is your approach is to take each individual as an individual, and there's some common frameworks that you work within, but ultimately, you're helping that individual reach that individual's potential, and that requires a lot of adaptability, and it's just not some sort of cookie cutter program that you sort of offer to everyone. It's I think that's one of the benefits, and that's why I say you have to develop a rapport with the client, between the client and the coach, because that's really what makes the thing work is the individual attention.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously we have the benefit of interacting together, you and I. Some of our other solutions that are more like online based, I guess that is reflected to the greatest extent possible so that it can cater for individuals within different niches, within different types of professions, etc. But yeah, for our interaction, specifically in the mastermind, we have that one-on-one dialogue, which is obviously greatly helpful.
Yeah, and that's again with the calls and with the one-on-one dialogue. It's not to say that I have looked at the academy programs. I've taken advantage of the online only content that you've developed, and not surprisingly, it's top-notch content, and so people who sort of want to start someplace, that's a great place to start, is with the online content. I think you call it the academy program still.
Accelerator as well, yeah. So two of them.
So both those programs deliver top-notch content, and I think that's one of the benefits that we enjoy as mastermind members now, as access to that, because
indeed,
as with everything, a lot of times it's just about returning to first principles. So the online program is an excellent way of sort of getting a grounding in the core principles that we're working on together.
Yeah. Fantastic, Michael. I think we've been, we're getting to the time now. I've really enjoyed talking with you as always, and I could definitely continue for another 30 plus minutes without any issues. But maybe we'll save that for a future conversation.
You bet. Look forward to it. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining me. I do appreciate it, and it's great working with you.
Take care.
Take care now. Bye-bye.